So Dubai is the land of expats. Everyone here is from somewhere else, and that is what brings us all close. However, we're sitting in a world where bad news is daily news. There's a lot happening across the world. There's a lot happening in the lives of our friends' families, extended families that are somewhere else, back home, right? How do we cope with it out here? And how do we cope with it at work? Welcome to another episode of Humans at Work. And today in the studio with me, I have Najah Musthafa, who is the clinical director of Monarch Health Centers and also the CEO and co-founder of Middle East North Africa Trauma Alliance. So I'm first going to turn towards and ask her to explain all these big words that I've just taken and share with us the work that she actually does. And then we're going to dive into a very juicy and very interesting conversation with a lot of truths coming through. So stay with us. So Najah, quickly to tell me, what exactly does the clinical director at Monarch Health Centers do? And what is Middle East North Africa Trauma Alliance?
Thank you so much for having me, first of all, and I think such an important conversation to have. I think sometimes, even in our clinic, when we talk about mental well-being, we don't always completely talk about workplace, and we all spend so much time at work, right? So it's interesting, even at a clinic, we're spending so much time, and sometimes we have to think about what does well-being look like at the clinic. So my job as a clinical director is that we support an entire team of clinicians, mental health clinicians and providers, and we do deliver mental health support to the public. So this is through the lifespan, 0 to 100. We do work with corporates as well, and I think that's part of the conversation today. And at MANATA, Middle East North Africa Trauma Alliance, we look at systems and trauma. So what we've done is built an infrastructure where we are able to work with communities, with organizations, with providers, and find solutions, mental health and trauma responsive solutions for them. And what we do is find the population that needs the support, find the provider, and connect. So it's a service sharing network, basically. Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, but you know the words that caught my eye was Trauma Alliance. And when you're saying you look at communities that need and then you find providers who can support, can you give me an example? Like break that down for me in the real world. What does that look like?
Absolutely. So within the corporate, it might be an organization that reaches out to us and tells us, hey, we're noticing our employee performance go down, because that's usually the trigger, or there's a lot of conflict within the workspace or communication breakdowns, and we might look into it and do a needs assessment and understand what the needs actually are. And what we have noticed, whether that is a corporate organization, a community program, is that trauma tends to be a part of the narrative. And when we are in a city like Dubai, where there are so many individuals that are coming to reinvent themselves, build through ambition, they are leaving behind specific difficulties and challenges that they've experienced in their lives, and actually sometimes still are, because their families are still back home, and are looking for economic growth, stability, and really sitting with the reality of, that's not the reality for my entire family, that's just the reality for me, and there's also an obligation to then support the family. So that's a narrative that comes up a lot.
Yeah.
So in the context of doing all of this work, what us three founders, all trauma clinicians, realized is trauma is experienced throughout the system, throughout the body as a system, throughout the relationship as a system, throughout workplaces as a system. So what we wanted to do is understand, how do we actually get to those pinpoints and support and integrate supports in all of those places? That's why Trauma Alliance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you a slightly controversial area, right?
Okay.
The word trauma. It's used very, very loosely. Anything and everything is trauma and traumatic, right? But as mental health professionals, we have different definitions or degrees or levels at which we will say, yes, this is trauma. Yes, this was traumatic for a period. Yes, I understand your pain versus I understand your trauma.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason why I'm bringing this up, because not to sound like dismissing anybody's pain, but it has different levels.
Absolutely.
And at what level do we, or how do we say that this was trauma on a society, general world level, right? And also on an individual level. Are we using the word too easily? Are we using the word without respect for what it actually defines or describes?
And I think that's a really important question to ask, because I do think there is a lot of psychological language being used generally, whether it's on social media, Instagram, TikTok, and we have to be really careful. And I also want to say that when we use the word trauma, we're not pathologizing.
Yeah.
That's like an entirely different area to navigate, and an important one as well. But the way that we see trauma is not the incident in itself, but the adaptation built within the system. Right?
Okay.
It's the survival response within the system. How is the autonomic nervous system responding to stimulus because of something that happened?
Okay.
And two people would have experienced the exact same thing, but respond completely differently. And for one person, there might be trauma there. And for another, that was a very difficult situation for me.
Yeah.
And there are so many reasons for why people present in that way as well. And a lot of times, actually, accumulation of other traumatic experiences then turn that into a more chronic experience as well. So there's a lot of layers to it. And trauma is not a fragility. And I think sometimes when we use that language, we also think like, are we making people feel fragile when we kind of say that this is traumatic, this is traumatic? It's adaptation. And the question actually that we want to ask is this adaptation serving me anymore in my current life? Yeah. Right? And if that adaptation, whether that is a reactivity that we have when a friend says something where we can't take feedback, right? And that could just be like an implicit flashback coming up in our nervous system. Is that adaptation actually serving me anymore? Or is it time for me to navigate this differently? So that's how we define trauma in a more broad, less pathologizing sense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But it's correct the way you were saying it, right? We're using a lot of psychological language loosely.
So much.
Right.
Yes.
And we don't know whether it's valid or not. One, as a relationship coach, and as an example I'll give you, I have clients calling me up telling me, am I a narcissist? And my question, exactly. Number one is that, but number two is the fact that you're even asking me that. And when I ask them, where is this coming from? Somebody else has dumped that label on them, right? Now, okay, somebody else has dumped that label on them. Maybe something they described in therapy has led their therapist to say this is behavior, narcissistic behavior, which has then led the person to come back home and, throw that label at them. Yes, that's it. You've diagnosed, right? And my answer to them always is that I'm a life coach. I cannot diagnose you as a narcissist or not. So I don't have an answer to your question. To which they will tell me promptly, and this is why I brought that question up, they will tell me, don't get so serious and all, just like tell me whether I'm I'm like, no, I will not tell you that. I will not tell you that because I know what you're doing. Dr. Google said something and your partner said something and we'll deal with that.
Yeah.
But this is not the right conversation. And that takes me back to the whole trauma piece, because I do get a lot of clients who come up and say, I'm traumatized because my mom yelled at me too much. I'm traumatized because my dad was never present. I'm traumatized because my mother-in-law doesn't love me. I'm traumatized because my boss constantly criticizes me, right? And this is everyday trauma.
Yeah. The stresses that come from the relationships we're in.
Is this a stress or is this really a trauma? How do you assess that? How does an individual, and I'm not talking about a clinician, someone comes to you, you might be able to put it into perspective. Someone came to me with narcissists, I put it into perspective, right? But as an individual, before I use that word, because then it's becoming my reality.
Yeah.
Right? It's becoming my reality, and then it's blocking me in certain ways that I'm not even realizing. Because I don't have the conscious realization of how certain words and certain language, when repeated, is shifting my behavior and my way of looking at the world and what I think I can do, what I'm capable of, and what I'm not capable of.
Absolutely.
So my question here is, how does an individual be wary of using the word trauma?
I think one, they're not going to be wary. Now we've gone into the world of AI and there's even more pathologizing happening, and it's so easy to have these conversations today. And of course, that means I've got teenagers coming up to me, 11-year-olds coming up to me and asking me these questions. And one of the most important things is to actually just focus on the experience.
Okay.
Right? So one of the things even though I do diagnose, I refrain from diagnosing if it doesn't actually benefit the individual's experience, right?
Yeah.
And when someone comes and asks me, am I this? I'll ask them, why is it important for you to know?
Yeah.
Like, what is it that you're getting curious about right now?
Yeah.
Is there a specific behavior that you're sitting with in curiosity, trying to navigate today? Right? Like, why are you asking me this question? What came up for you when this label was dumped on you? Let's go there.
Yeah.
So really moving them out of like, hey, I need this label. But again, the reason that certain labels are important in the medical field and not so much in our society, the way that we're using it, is for access to support, right? Like insurance is a real thing, right? And having access to insurance means like diagnosing and pathologizing as part of that process. So it is about creating specific access, but we've moved completely away from that, right? And sometimes it's, I have this label, therefore my behavior is okay. And that's another danger that I see as well. And I think with even the daily relational triggers that happen, it's so important for us to, one, learn tolerance for discomfort in relationships. That's just natural. And two, where is it not tolerance for discomfort and it is moving into a place where you're not able to honor your self-concept, your autonomy, your agency? So that's when we start going, okay, what is this about? Is this the fawn response, right? And if you're noticing a fawn response, then we're trying to say, what is the experience you had in your past that created this protective response? And that's where the trauma work is. So most trauma clinicians will not be sitting there and diagnosing trauma. You know, you're not going to hear like, that is war trauma, and that is this trauma, and that is this trauma. We're going to be working bottom up with the autonomic nervous system. We're going to be talking about the subcortical brain, reflexes, sympathetic charge. It's a very different language model as well.
Right.
Right. But it's not what we see on social media. It's not what we're seeing on Google. And it's deeply relational.
Yeah. And I think this is one of the biggest reasons why it's not okay to use this language even in everyday life, because you know there's another word that's used, oh, I'm stuck in victim energy. Yeah, you're labeling a behavior, we understand it, but the moment you add the word trauma into that, you start allowing yourself to just spiral in that energy and behave as per that model, right? And that's where this then becomes harmful. It's terribly harmful in everyday story, right? In the workplace. And this is what I have noticed is, and you said something very interesting, it's the ability to sit with discomfort, right, in relationships. I say it's the ability to sit with discomfort in life, right? Absolutely. Because through the day, there's so much that happens that's uncomfortable, uneasy, not going your way, and you yet have to work through it. That's life, right? That's life. But at work, a large part of this comes up because there's an entire room within that office, that is unable to decipher between criticism and feedback. Right? And because they're walking into rooms where they're getting feedback that is not 100% positive, they see it as criticism, which then is slotted into the trauma box, which then leads to the boss being called the bad boss, and the organization as being toxic. Now, all of these words that I have used.
So charged. Right? And so binary. And I think that's something humans really rely on binaries. It's like it's good or bad, it's this or that. And actually maybe it's both, or maybe it's neither, or it's something in between. I do want to say, because we are living in Dubai, the pressures of success really, really also impact how people take feedback. Because criticism I used to live in Australia, and it was a very different system there. And when you get criticism, actually there are so many policies and laws protecting you that your boss can't just fire you.
Okay, fair.
What happens with that reality when then you receive feedback? Systemically, when there's protection for your job, are you going to be as reactive?
Right. I'm not as insecure. I'm feeling safer because my boss can't just fire me. Right.
Right.
I'm also assuming that in systems like that, the language used to give feedback is very different.
Very different.
Right.
And I think there's also a natural progression here in leadership that's very different to what natural progression of leadership looks like in certain other systems.
Right.
And here, a lot of success is monitored by financial literacy and growth.
Right.
Right? So your leadership is usually someone who's in a very different economic state than you are. And that also creates like a power dynamic.
Yeah.
And now with the visa realities, etc., this could be someone who could literally tell you no longer can make enough money to provide for your family.
Or that you have lost a job and your visa's getting canceled in 30 days.
Go, right? When that power dynamic is there, criticism is the first thing you look at because there's already a threat present, right? And feedback is so hard to receive because this person is so much more powerful than me that what they say could change my life significantly.
Okay.
And that imbalance of power also is how humans respond. So generally, if we're in a place of survival, and I'll be very honest, I think as a collective, we're going through moral injury with what's happening in the world, especially in this region. I know everywhere, but especially in this region, there's a lot of moral injury. And we're sitting with a lot of complexities and difficulties because of that. So people are already at work and experiencing a lot of vicarious trauma and chronic and cumulative vicarious trauma. And with social media, that is much higher as well.
Yeah.
Our exposure levels are very, very high. Now we're in a very busy city, right? And this is a city where you can't even set boundaries with your boss, right? If you're working from 9 to 5, you're not really working from 9 to 5.
Yeah.
You have to get to a certain position to tell your boss I'm working from 9 to 5. There is that power dynamic, right? So with all of those realities, the survival mechanisms in our system are already activated. So generally, what is leadership's role to create an environment where employees can take feedback? Like, I would put it back on them.
On them.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, what does that look like when these are the actual factors we have to consider on a day-to-day?
Okay, but let's work with the reality that we have, okay? Dubai is expensive. Every company out here is about profit, right? The ones who succeed are the direct revenue generators.
Yeah.
And then second are the ones who are successfully supporting the first tier of revenue generators, right? This is a system that exists. Now, within this system, if we had to plug in something that supported mental health, sanity, just keeping sanity, keeping threat low, keeping sense of safety, how do we do that?
One, awareness. I think there is almost like a fear of discussions at work, but we can't actually avoid the reality. And if we're not, I'm not saying talking about it and your manager becoming your therapist per se, right? Because that's not the dynamic we want to create either. But if we're not creating room for it, for that reality, then you are going to see that in conflict at work. You're going to see that in underperformance at work. You're going to see that in retention issues. So you are going to see the problem. It's just going to be in a different way.
Right.
So bring that to the surface. And what does that look like? One, leadership embodying values. Like sometimes with well-being programs, it is a webinar, right? Leadership won't attend it.
I was just going to say it's a webinar, but the leadership is MIA. Yes. Does not exist. The leadership exited the building.
Right? It's like, we did this thing.
Yeah.
It should fix the situation. Yeah. It does not. Now, leadership is frustrated. Why didn't it work? Yeah. But honestly, well-being is an investment.
Yeah.
It's one that we have to take seriously. And it can't just be, I'm not saying the webinar format doesn't work, but it can't be that checklist.
It
once
can't be a
quarter.
workshop. It has to
Yeah.
be something more
Consistent.
right? It has to be
Yes.
consistent. It has to be something that everybody logs into or logs on to at a regular frequency.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, whether they decide it's once a month, whether it's once a week, whatever it is, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever, but it has to be at a regular frequency.
Absolutely. Consistency is so important. Another thing that I would say is absolutely HR needs to implement, leadership needs to embody. If
Right.
HR does the implementation, leadership doesn't embody, no one takes it seriously.
Yeah, I mean, I at some level feel very bad for HR because they're trained for processes.
Yeah.
But they're asked to be therapists
I know.
and monitors.
Yes.
Okay, so it's a very unfortunate role that they jump into, which no education preps you for.
Absolutely not.
Right? And I think HR needs to at some point take a stand with the leadership and say, these are the resources we need
Yeah.
in order to give you the KPIs that you have put down.
Yes. Yeah, and without invalidating that leadership has their own goals,
Yeah.
right? And performance matters.
Yeah.
Like all these things are valid for an organization to sustainably run. But we have to come to terms with the fact that certain things don't work, and actually investing in this is risk management. Right? I think language really matters, and there are two parts to language. And I think leadership understanding that psychological literacy is not dangerous.
Yeah.
I feel like there's this like nervousness with psychological literacy, emotional literacy, and we are from a collectivistic culture, making room for the fact that it's hard to talk about our feelings. And there are ways to do it that doesn't have to be direct talking about feelings. EAP programs work really well. There are some organizations that do a great job with it.
Yeah.
Actually invest in them.
What is the fear? That you will have people crying in the office? Is that the fear, if I spell it out?
I think
Or that they would go from having aggressive yelling conflict to soppy crying conflicts?
See, I can't tell you for sure what the specific fear is, but I think that in itself is a human fear.
Yeah.
Like sitting with our emotions is like a human fear.
Yeah.
So I think it's also, if I'm uncomfortable with that emotion in you, I'm uncomfortable with that emotion in me.
Right.
Right. So
Right.
again, that's like a development for leadership to do. And one thing I'm really passionate about, and Monarch Health Centers, actually, we do corporate programs as well, is that we train leadership.
Right.
Because if we don't train leadership to hold this space, as soon as we walk out the door, that's not sustainable anymore.
Yeah.
We have to translate those skills into your system in some way or form. And it's not just through your employees. Absolutely give tools, and this is where the webinars actually work. Emotional regulation, very specific tools, micro regulation within, your working day, etc. Those things are implementable. But if there are very big problems in terms of communication breakdowns and not being able to work collaboratively, and remember, when we are in survival, we struggle with creativity, we struggle with collaboration. When we're in threat response, our goal is not to work, it's to survive.
Yeah.
And if work and survival are enmeshed, that's going to look a very specific
And
way.
if for survival you've been conditioned to people please,
And
then you are
overachieve.
no longer using your brain. You're
No.
just doing what you are told and messing up even more because
Yes.
the other person is constantly screaming for you to behave autonomously,
Absolutely.
right? But you are just towing the line.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so you don't come across as an independent thinker, and then it's a loop that you get stuck in.
And also, I recently heard this from someone quite senior in corporate EAPs, where they said, sometimes your highest performer is the most dysregulated person on a team. And I was like, oh my God, yes.
And
if overachieving is part of that
I'm
narrative.
validating that, considering my clients who are high achievers at top positions in many different organizations, they are so dysregulated. If I have to get them to follow their own goal, they will achieve their goal. Mind you, they will achieve it and they will do it 20% plus.
Yeah.
Right? It'll not be 100, it'll be 120. They'll do it within the deadline.
Yes.
However, the road and the behavior to get there,
The expense.
the
Right.
expense of it.
Yeah.
So I know what you are saying, and yet organizations are not providing a support system.
No.
Right? For me, things that you said, consistency and regularity. Something that is going on, available to your employees week on week on week on week, whether you have 3 attendees or whether you have 100, right? Having professionals sit in your office once a week, available, with the doors open,
Yep.
right? Whether one person walks in or 5 people walk in.
Absolutely.
And this is something that needs to be implemented, especially in a place like UAE, where your life and your work life is so high paced, and your dreams are big and your goals are big because that's the land, right? But you are also surviving or helping a family survive back home.
Yep. Responsibilities are different.
Yeah.
And I always say reinvention is beautiful, and I think Dubai has created a beautiful landscape for reinvention. But reinvention without integration is just a form of avoidance.
Yeah.
You know, and
Yeah.
we get stuck in that for
Yeah.
years and years and then have an existential crisis.
Yeah.
Everything I achieved, what does it mean?
Yeah.
I hear that in Dubai. You know, people that have done incredible work, they're like, but I didn't get to spend time with my family.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Right, because you reach, I mean, if you go by the longest study done by Harvard, it's all over. And even if you sit down and actually open that study and read through it, right? At
75 years, I know.
At the end of it,
exactly which one.
relationships matter.
Number
right?
one.
Number
predictor
one. Number
of
one.
longevity, of wellness. It's not all the new supplements coming in. It's
No.
not NAD. It's not the biomarkers that it's relationships.
Yeah.
It is relationships.
Yeah.
And that also, in terms of corporate, is the relationships you have with your peers, with your leadership. Those are relationships that you are daily in when you are in that space. How safe are those relationships?
Yeah.
How isolated are you at work? What is the expense you're paying for that isolation as well? I think those are questions we completely ignore.
And one of the things, like, I started this conversation saying that we're all outsiders here and yet we belong. We all come from different countries. And we have a very large population that comes from trouble-stricken countries, right? Where it's devastating realities.
Yep.
And they're here, and their family is back there, sometimes extended family. They're hearing the news. They're, going through all of this. And they're living here. They're working in very intense jobs. They have very big targets. They don't have room to say, I can't do this, because they have a bunch of people dependent on them. Plus, they are worrying about the safety of those people. How do we support them?
I want to add one more factor that I often hear, because I work with some executives that are in that position, is the guilt of being safe. And not
that
being able to
is-
access therapy and say, I'm going to complain about what I'm going through when that's
Yeah.
what's happening in the world to my own family, to my loved ones.
Yeah.
What does that even mean to access support, to be able to come to therapy? That's a hard thing.
So not taking therapy is a way of punishing and staying in the suffering with their loved ones,
Yeah.
right?
Guilt is real.
The guilt doesn't let them reach out.
Yeah.
And that is such a, that reality is a hard one.
Yeah.
Right.
And so I think that's the first place we usually work.
Yeah.
Like really sitting with that guilt, where it comes from, and going close to that pain.
Yeah.
And also that isolation from your family, because we are from collectivistic cultures, which means we do heal in collectives.
Yeah.
And what does it mean to be completely separate, distance from family, from loved ones, when they're suffering and you're suffering, but your suffering can't be exposed because they're suffering more? There's that entire narrative within them.
You don't perceive as you being under any real threat, but they're under very real threat.
Yeah.
And so you're the one who's saying, suck it up and it's my responsibility and I'll do my job and I have no reason to cry.
Yeah. And I
Right?
hear that a lot, by the way. And it's like this privilege. I've got to be grateful. And what I usually try to create room for in that environment is, yes, privilege. gratitude, very important. You need to hold that close to you. I understand. Is there still pain?
Yeah.
Can we still work with the pain?
Yeah.
You know, and who does it benefit for you to avoid this pain?
Yeah.
Like, really, you know, and that's that actually.
I also say another thing, which is basically that if you are going to crash and burn, then you are really of no use to them.
Yeah.
Which means that one part of your responsibility towards your loved ones is for you to stay healthy and get through this.
Absolutely.
Right? Because you have to be able to carry the weight
Yeah.
consistently
Yeah.
through that distance.
Yeah.
And your breaking down is not helping anyone, least of all the ones you are worried about.
Yeah. 100%.
So it's almost as if stepping out and taking help is also a responsibility and not just parking privilege aside and,
Yeah.
kind of a thing.
And by the way, therapists, I've heard a lot of therapists engage with that because we're still working
Yeah.
while experiencing moral injury,
Yeah.
while really hearing all of these stories and making room for them. And it's like, oh gosh, what is our responsibility? And we have our privileges. We've got like some incredible support structures, right? Especially if we're in community with each other. And it's like, then if we are not fortifying ourselves with each other and building this support network, we can't actually help
Yeah.
the wider community.
Yeah. And sometimes it's not about therapy, right? It's not about being in that room one-on-one. Sometimes it's about sitting in a group, not talking at all, but listening to other people's stories. I think when you're sitting in a room and you hear one person going through something that you are going through or have gone through, it makes you less alone.
Absolutely.
And that shifts your ability to deal with things.
Absolutely.
Right? It
Witnessing.
It completely switches you. It gives you some kind of strength and self-belief to say you will also pull through.
Yeah.
It can also happen for you.
Yes. And shared meaning is so important for community. And I think we have this initiative called Resilience Roundtable. It's a part of Manata. It started 2 years ago. It was the initial seed before Manata was even named Manata.
Yeah.
And it came from really realizing that clinicians are traumatized.
Yeah.
Especially clinicians working with acute clients' cases. And honestly, there's a lot of vicarious trauma and autonomic nervous system activation happening. And when the genocide this time happened, it was like, okay, we've got to do this work, but we've got to be there for each other. Like, we've got to do something to hold each other. And then we created the space. It was incredibly successful because people held together.
Yeah.
There were tears.
Yeah.
There were very important, and it was not about tools because we're all clinicians, right? We're all there.
Yeah.
We know how to hold. It was just the witnessing and being able to name things.
Yeah.
That was so important for us to then go back and do our work.
Yeah, because it's not like we can sit and talk about what a client went through with anybody, right? But I can sit in a room and tell you this is what my client went through, and you can tell me this, without taking names, of course, but actually talk about what it made you feel as a regular person, and not as the therapist or not as the coach.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Countertransference is so important. That's what we call it, right? Like, we're human.
Yeah.
And by the way, the day you lose that humanity, you become rubbish at this work.
True.
You know, a lot of people ask me, do you get desensitized? Because I work with a lot of acute cases. And I'm like, the day I become desensitized is the day I'm rubbish at this.
I mean, if I don't cry with my client when they're going through something that is, bringing them to tears, if them being brought to tears does not move me, then that's a dangerous zone.
Yeah.
That's a very dangerous zone.
We're in relationship. This is a therapeutic alliance, humanity shared.
Yeah, there's care.
Yeah.
There's genuine care.
Yeah.
And that's not something, it's not non-negotiable for us. I think for most therapists, most mental health professionals, most care workers, any kind of care workers, nurses, doctors, any kind of care workers, we're invested in a very different way.
Absolutely.
I want to bring this conversation back a little bit to the workspaces, right? And we started talking about how people were from outside and they're all here, and some of them are from countries which are right now going through a lot of strife.
Yeah.
But if they need support, they have to go get it themselves. And I feel that, yes, Dubai is about growth, and Dubai is about abundance, and Dubai is about success, and you get to live the big life, and you get to make your dream come true. All of that is true. But at what point do we hold the systems and the organizations accountable to providing support and safety? You know, do you just hire somebody and because you're giving a paycheck, everything else is their problem? Don't bring your personal life to work? Is that how we look at it? Is that even a valid way of looking at it? Or do organizations have a responsibility to provide support, to provide safety, to provide help, the right kind of space and help
Yep.
for their employees who have family, or even if they don't have family, still come from those countries where things are in a terrible, terrible state?
I would love to fantasize with you.
Yeah, I know. I just painted a very, very nice utopia. But which is why my question was, you know, our organizations, should they really be held responsible or should they not?
I think they should. And I think not just in terms of the organization, like even insurance
Yeah.
needs to be held responsible. Like, what are we doing
Yeah.
to actually support mental health access, right? The
We do
reality.
have insurance now for mental health. Is it working the way it should work? Okay, that
No.
face says a lot.
No. I think it's 1 or 3 sessions. That's an intake process. So I don't think
Okay,
it
so
works
they're
the
treating
way.
therapy like dental.
Yeah.
Therapy is the same as dental in insurance.
Yeah.
And that is, but the word that comes to me is blasphemy. Because,
This is my version of the webinar. So
yeah, insurance companies need to do better.
Yeah.
And I think the government needs to do better with policies. If in insurance, it is in the same treatment box as dental.
And they are, right? I think there's a whole framework that is meant to be coming out 2030
Yeah.
to buy wealth.
Yeah. There's a whole
wealth.
mental health framework out
Yeah.
there. There's a fund out there.
And
I
it
know
will take
there's
time.
yeah.
It
yeah.
will take time. We always forget that Dubai is 52 years old.
Yeah.
It is very young.
Hey, but it's a fast 52-year-old.
Very, very
It's
fast.
a very fast and
I think
adaptive
that's why.
52-year-old.
That's also why, because certain aspects were so quick that people moved in so quick.
Yeah.
And certain systems take a little bit more time to mature. Healthcare systems take more time
Yeah.
to mature because healthcare systems are built on data, and the data is consistently changing, and we're looking at over 150, 160 different cultures. We're looking at so many different factors and intersections.
Right.
And this takes time to mature. There's a reality to that, right? And so it's important for us to make room for that reality, but in the in-between space, which is where we are, it's this like in-between space where there's a lot of frustration, and I know a lot of healthcare workers also have their frustrations around it. What is our responsibility? One, as a community, if we do hold specific privileges and can advocate. I know with Manata, that's why we're building Neuro Aligned, which is basically a program that we can offer organizations that is trauma responsive specifically. So we're looking at trauma, the way that it responds in the body, and we have 3 tiers for employees, for leadership, for executives. And the reason we're doing it that way is so the accountability system
Yeah.
is throughout,
Yeah.
right? So are there people in your circle that are taking accountability where they do have a voice? That's important. I do think that a lot of structures are willing to listen, but I think also because of the corporate structure and the commercial aspects of how Dubai is run makes it harder because we're looking at sales as an outcome always. We're looking
Yeah.
at sales as an outcome, and I think especially when you're in a transient city and turnover doesn't mean the same thing,
Yeah.
I feel like it's harder to invest in the people.
But I think another piece with turnover is attrition and layoffs.
Yeah.
And and I say this specifically about sales industry, right? Whatever you may be selling, the targets that are there.
Yeah.
Today, when I look at real estate as an example, agents are either on no salary or on very low salary.
Yes.
Because their commissions are high. I get the math, I understand it, fair. However, a lot of agents are from countries where things are really, really in a politically unstable state, in every way, financially, economically, in a terribly, terribly sad state, right? It's unstable.
Yeah.
And what happens when they don't make a sale 1 month or 2 months or 3 months? I do know that the industry also has, many of the players have a rule that if you don't meet your targets 3 months in a row, you're going to be out of a job. And then you have 30 days to again, kind of before your visa gets stricken off, etc.
Figure out another way. Yeah.
If organizations like these actually offer help and support and growth, right? And it's not just about trauma, it's even about growth and self-development.
Yeah.
If they offer those kind of programs available to their staff, even the staff that is only on commission, they save on attrition and they save on the expense of bringing in new employees and the training and all of those pieces, right?
Yeah.
Where is it that we're not communicating or not seeing this, or it's happening and it's not happening fast enough?
I think it's a lack of seeing the importance. I also think when you're seeing some of your highest performers literally make millions very quickly, they're like, you either have it or you don't in sales.
Right.
There's this mentality where it's like, this is more about, do you have this or do you not? And it's a very competitive market. I think with real estate agents, we're looking at over 40,000 agents right now in Dubai.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's a very quick-paced market
Yeah.
as well. So I think the way that a lot of leadership looks at it is, well, someone's doing it. If you're not, that's more to do with you than it's to do with the organization. But of course, that conversation internally has to happen first, where leadership goes, maybe we can build a different system and more people can have it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if that conversation doesn't happen, doesn't matter what program we build, what well-being support, there's no entry point.
So what can people and organizations like you and me and yours and mine do about this? I mean, what can mental health professionals and organizations that offer mental health programs, services, help, support, what can we do to change this conversation, or to even actually not change it, to start the conversation? Because it's not happening at the moment, right? So what can we do?
I think one of the biggest things that does work is actually doing a needs assessment, right? Like actually understanding what's happening in the organization, so that will allow the team to see what's happening, right? Sometimes we're going into a space, they don't even know what questions to ask. We can just see that there is a fallout rate. We can just see that this is what's happening. This is the outcome, but it's not the issue. And they don't know what questions to ask to even understand what the issue is.
Right.
So doing a needs assessment, whether it's having conversations, whether it's in your circle or a meeting that you schedule and be like, what do you think you're struggling with? And then having that needs assessment, diagnosing the actual problem, and then going into the solution. Because I think as well-being providers and health providers, we often have a solution.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times
we have a way through. We do.
It's like, but we don't need that.
Yeah.
So,
we have a way through.
So that bridge has to be built. And also, again, psychological literacy. I think psychoeducating individuals to understand what the human problem is so important. Otherwise, you don't even know that you're having a human problem.
Okay, so I have one last question before we wrap up. Say I'm working in an organization with 500 people, et cetera, right? Whatever department I'm in. Somebody sitting on my floor, or many people sitting on my floor, are coming from politically, economically unstable countries which are going through strife at the moment. Maybe a news piece has broken out. Maybe something is ongoing. There's a traumatic thing ongoing. How do I, as a colleague, as a peer, help my colleague and peer? This may not be somebody that I go to lunch with or am I besties with or I talk to every day. But I see them. We have water cooler conversations. We might have some kind of a rapport because we work together on certain projects. How do I support this colleague and peer of mine?
As a peer, presence goes a long way.
Right.
It doesn't even have to be a conversation.
Right.
Presence means I've witnessed that you're experiencing something. You know, whether you choose to share that with me, whether you don't, those are boundaries that each individual, I think, sets for themselves, especially in a workplace.
Yeah.
But it's, I'm here and you're human, I'm human. And I understand you're human, you're having this human moment. And I'm not going to dehumanize you because we're at work.
Right.
I think that's it, you know. And then, of course, in terms of policy and culture and all those things, there are different things we can do.
Yeah.
But human to human, in that moment, that person is vulnerable, presence goes a long way.
Yeah. And if I'm taking that one level up, right? There's no policy in place. There's nothing in place. Everything's been going gung-ho. This is happening. A large set of the employees are going through something. What does HR do? And we, for anyone tuning in, especially anyone from the corporate world, we did this during COVID.
Yeah.
We saw it happen during COVID. So what is it that HR needs to do?
Don't hush.
Yeah.
I think hush culture is huge.
Yeah.
I think allow people to share their experiences, whether that is creating a group. I think groups actually go really, really far.
I do agree with that. I think groups they're really powerful and
They're
magic.
so
And I know a
powerful.
lot of people are very intimidated by groups saying, I can't share with people I don't know and whatever. But when you're sitting in a group, it's actually easier to share with strangers
Yeah.
than with people you know. And even if you do know them, the moment you see one person start sharing, you see the space open up.
Yeah. And co-regulation naturally starts happening.
Yeah.
Like literally we are mimicking each other's nervous systems.
Yeah.
My healing journey started in group therapy.
Yeah.
And I hardly spoke, but it changed my life.
Yeah.
You know, and I think we really, really undermine what a collective space can do and what our nervous systems can offer and can receive in that space.
I remember doing a group session for a pharma company during COVID. This was in India, and they were dealing with grief because a lot of people had lost family members to that. And it was an online session, and we did about 2, if I'm not mistaken. But the number of messages I got after that and it was an all women's group session. It was not a small group. We were about 80 or 100 people on it, right? But so many people shared, so many people asked questions, so many people went through a framework that I took them through, all of that. But the messages that I received after that was to say that this work does work,
Yeah.
you know? And at some point, organizations need to open up and see it differently rather than my employees don't attend such things. We have kept a lot of these things, but no employees come.
And also question, what is it in what you're offering
Yeah,
that your employees are not engaging with? Get curious.
yeah,
You know, I notice that people don't like being spoken to, like just spoken at. And I think that happens in the well-being space as well. It's like, these are the tools. This is what you should do. And when you experience this, do this. A group is different
yeah,
because it's actually, this is your space. I'm here to hold. You're the expert. Whereas in a front-facing relationship, it's I'm the expert. I can tell you what to do, but I don't know their experience.
yeah,
Like, how invalidating.
yeah,
You know, and I think that's where the power dynamic shifts and becomes safer
yeah.
as well.
Okay, so one last question. If I gave you a magic wand and you could change something in the way mental health
Don't do
works,
this to me.
it's a magic wand. Come on. I know you want to pick 50,000 things, and we all do. Come on, give me the top one over there. What's your number one on your list? What needs to change, or what would you like to change or see different?
This is a difficult one. Magic wand. Completely changing the system. Systemic change. I
Okay,
think.
what changes in the system? Give me 1, 2, 3 things that change.
One, the importance of humanity within a system, right? Which means the triangle model doesn't really work. Seeing things as more of a circle Like when I think of a system, I always think Circle at Monarch Health Centers, we're a transdisciplinary team, which means our patient or the individual or family being cared for is at the center. And as a team, we work around them.
Yeah.
And so we've completely changed the hierarchy system. Of course, we've got line management for other things, but in terms of the clinical support, from a systemic point of view, I think that would really change the world.
Yeah.
You said magic wand. So.
That was the point, because that's the piece, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I get what you're saying with the whole circular system, because that's how it should work. The sun is in the center, and the solar system, the other planets are revolving around.
Yeah.
Right? So if you are the sun in your life, all your support systems are the planets that need to work around it.
Yes.
Right? And if they take from you, they give back to you.
Absolutely.
In a transformed way.
And reciprocity over transaction happens when we build systems like that. So, I mean, my background, I'm from Kerala, and we come from a very small village that's like socialist. And so the way that we kind of think of the world is, I have a responsibility to this world, and you have a responsibility to this world, and we honor that responsibility to the world. And the transaction goes away in that, you know, and it becomes a profound, fulfilling experience to be responsible when we experience that.
Yeah.
So bringing that back, I would say.
Okay. Yeah. So thank you very much for joining me, Najah. And this was a really, really interesting conversations. I think it was, when we spoke about being invested in clients, that was a moment for me to hold myself. But thank you for being so open. Thank you for your honesty, and thank you for your ideas. We hope that there are people, our audience, take something from this and are able to maybe be a catalyst of change.
Yeah, absolutely.
Within the system that they live in.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a delightful conversation.
Thank you. And with that, we are signing off, but do subscribe to our channel. The link is below, Humans at Work podcast. Thank you.